Welcome to Dark Loops, the Lasso Crew, a podcast in which we discuss season 2 of the Apple Plus series, Ted Lasso. I'm your host, Dr. Scott Jordan, aka Zombie Scotty, cognitive psychologist, philosopher at Illinois State University. And tonight we discuss episode 2, The Prodigal Beefcake. So, fellow members of the Lasso Crew, please say hello and tell the audience a little something about who you are. And we will start with Kerri.
I'm Kerri Morris. I teach at Governor State University. I'm an English professor.
Fantastic. How about you, Montien?
Hi, Montien Miller. I am a registered nurse and an IT analyst and a TV movie enthusiast.
Fantastic. Representing for the Eagles this evening, I see.
How
Fantastic.
dare you?
Says Boston.
I mean, really.
And next we have Sister A.
Yes, I am Sister A. I am a podcaster with Sister Speak Productions, coming in from the fair city of Boston, a Liverpool fan over here. And ready to talk some Ted Lasso.
Fantastic. So what we do here is talk about favorite scene, favorite character, favorite line. And we don't have to do all of that at once. Just get the conversation started. And we'll open the floor to whoever wants to start.
I could jump in, I guess.
Yeah, go ahead.
I had a couple favorite scenes, but I'll just throw this one out as it came up sooner in the actual episode. I enjoyed Ted barging into the new doctor's office with his cookie attempts to try to make new friends with his new nemesis.
Yes.
But she wasn't falling for any of that.
Nope.
And his attempts went awry with a door in the face. So that was good.
Yes.
Yeah. She was so kind to him too, right? And she was just kind and calm and honest. And, you know, I don't eat sugar, threw him for a bit of a loop, but nonetheless, she was just clear and honest with him. And I really kind of dug how they played on their relationship over the rest of the episode. It was, she still was herself in a, slightly more open way. And it was awesome.
Yeah. I'm liking
that.
that.
It's going to be fun to see how that develops, I think.
Yeah, and they're taking on a lot of responsibility as writers if they're actually going to present her as a legit therapist, and they're going to put him in therapy with her, which I think they're going to do. Man, they better have consulted some people, right? Because if you're going to do a therapy session in television and you don't do it well, cancel culture will be on you quickly.
Did they contact you guys? There's like this whole new therapist, psychologist coming into the TV show. Did they contact you, Zombie and Kerri and the whole gang?
No.
It's just kind of funny that that's what you guys are all, that's your occupations, and that happened to come up as a new main character.
Yeah, I think I laughed too much for them. I needed someone a bit more deadpan to keep that going. How about someone else? Favorite line, favorite character, favorite scene?
Let's see. My favorite scene was, I just love Keely and I was going to say Jamie, Lord help me. That was another one though. But
Right.
I like Keely and Roy Kent's interaction, especially when he came home and caught her having a wank. It just really kind of keyed me in on their relationship, clued us in as to how they kind of interact. But also we got a little glimpse at that retirement.
Yeah, we did.
That was
What
great.
happened with that retirement speech and the fact that was turning her on about him because she saw him be vulnerable and passionate and vulnerable. That's what she described it as. Was really interesting. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that later because there are some things in reference to the title that kind of points back to that scene.
Okay.
I love that scene, and I love the follow-up scene later on. I love this is going to sound, it is what it is. I love the adult conversation about self-pleasure. Right. I love the way that he just walked in and kind of said, "You haven't a wank."
Like
she throws a phone. And then he says,
what
no,
she's
it's
watching.
okay. Show me what's on the phone. And he says something like, babe, come on, don't be embarrassed. Whatever it is, it's fine. I like watching couples have sex in woods because I could never be that free. That's just awesome. It's totally honest. And you don't usually see shows deal with sexuality that way. And it was just, I'm just gonna say delightful, hilarious and delightful to see them have that conversation. I absolutely loved it. And then, like you said, when she shows him what it is, I have to tell you, I thought for sure it was going to be a picture of Jamie.
Me too.
Because I just finished the conversation with
Jamie.
And I love the show, the way the show 180s me in the face, right? They just set me up and then boom, something completely different.
Yeah.
And it's always hilarious.
It was right before when Jamie was stalking her in the coffee shop.
Right.
So then, they have this whole thing and, then it's like, oh no. Then he comes home and he's calling her and I'm just like, oh no, I know she did not fall off the wagon with Jamie Tart.
And did they set us up for that or what? She gave him a look in the store. She's vulnerable to a kind, Jamie Tart. And I thought, oh, this good for you guys. And then it just 180s into this glorious adult scene. I give them all the credit. It's fantastic.
Well, I'm not sure what my favorite scene is. I have some possibilities, but I do want to say my favorite line because I just howled at this line. So when Jamie's talking to his whatever it would be called, his agent, that's what it would be called. And he says, Jamie, you're like a son to me. And now you're like a dead son, which means I love you even more.
It's just one of 180, just boom, boom, boom. And
it's just so good. You're dead to me, which means I love you even more.
And it's delivered so deadpan. I mean, it's so just
beautiful.
No.
I think my favorite line from that scene is when the talent agent comes in, Mary, and she's trying to get him to go on a reality show. Do you mind taking ecstasy for about 3 weeks? 3 weeks. Straight. It's like, what? Like, what are you going to be doing? You need to be taking ecstasy for that long.
I think that joke's more on us, right? That we would actually watch someone be on ecstasy for 3 weeks, and a lot of people would tune in for that.
Reality TV.
Probably would.
So many great little one-liners. I love the television announcer going out saying, have scientists really discovered low-fat custard that doesn't make you sad?
What?
So British.
Yeah.
And and it's so because even when Jamie's being such a jerk while they're asking him the questions about who he had sex with in the show and stuff, the woman is kind of like, what? She's got that look on his face, and then they recover, and the old dude, he's just like, okay, back into the gig, and he's like Joe super happy, and you can see the professional smile come out, and let's keep the show light, and just top-notch acting. Yeah, really a lot of fun. So I'll go to I think my favorite scene is actually the end, or the final scene between I was gonna say Jamie too. Roy and Keeley, when he comes home after doing the gig, and he says this great line. It says, you helped me help myself again. So I wanted to thank you properly. That is just so smart. When's the last time we saw anything that takes a moment of potential cultural taboo and turns it into pure love? I just thought that was, and I watched.
And give me the phone.
Yeah. Puts in her earbuds.
Give me
just
the phone.
Press play.
For the soccer enthusiasts out there, I'm assuming you enjoyed his premiere episode on the sports channel.
Oh God.
Man. And I love those three fans in the pub. They're too funny.
The one guy says, I I just loved it. And
Yeah.
they're really playing this Roy character to have these two sides. And you really do see that they played on it last season, but what he's doing on the field is a character, right?
Yeah.
And then what he's doing off the field is a different character. Even though they're the same person, and the two sides actually probably fueling each other in a fairly healthy way. Even though he's just doing all these things people say they don't like yelling and
cussing.
Exactly.
But they do love it.
Exactly. They totally love it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love his interaction with the little girls and their
oh my gosh,
their
that is
consolation
hysterical.
trophies. Here, I don't know, just have at it.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
And then I don't know if she's like an assistant coach or if she's a den mother or something, right? I don't know what she is, but she goes, well, yeah, I used to get tough love too, but I took it when I knew that it mattered to the coach. And then so he went back and says what he says. And I just really like the way they let him lean into in front of the kids. That's just not something we talk about or see, as if somehow you're not going to like showing kids how to be a full adult. I'm sorry. It doesn't mean he was an adult in that moment, but we're just as complex as anything else in the universe. And it's not like we go around being nice all day as a version of our better selves. So I love it when they let that be real.
Yeah. Those little girls are just looking up at him with these smiles. They just want their prize. They don't care.
Oh,
they are adorable.
And then he picks one out and he says, oh, best award for best outfit. That's stupid. You're all wearing the same thing. And then he gives it to a girl. And this other girl looks over her shoulder, kind of pissed off. Kids don't care. It's an award. Even if they all get one, they just don't care. All that little stuff they pick up on, and it's just the best. Just the best. Any other characters, scenes, lines?
Well, I think if I had to choose just one scene, there were so many good scenes. I guess I really liked the scene in the pub when Jamie sits down next to Ted and puts his soldier down next to him. And Ted eventually says, yeah, sometimes having a tough dad is exactly what drives certain fellas to be great at what they do. And then Jamie asks him about his father. And then there's an awkward pause. And he says, my father was a lot harder on himself than he was on me. And then later in the show, you have Dr. Sharon telling him that her favorite book was Prince of Tides. And I'm just telling you, Magnolia in episode 1, Prince of Tides in episode 2, we are going to be talking about child abuse at some point in this show.
Oh, wow.
I mean, those are two incredibly heavy
movies,
shows, I mean, and they're both about father-son relationships, incredibly failed, awful, abusive relationships. So I think Sharon has his number. Absolutely.
That's fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, she starts to deconstruct him. Like, yeah, we should talk.
Right. I love it when she said that.
And she does it with a smile, right? And I love when you mentioned earlier, he barges in the room and he sits down from across from her. She goes, oh, I see what you're doing here. This is how you behave when someone new comes around. It's very off-putting, or whatever the word she said, but she's being her analytic self, not letting him control the moment. And but it was also authentic to her, right? It wasn't just her being a clinician. I thought it was part of who she was. And I think that level of confidence that allows her then to give him a little bit at the end of the episode and smile along with him, and just, oh my God, the wickedness. Oh, this is a very nice place to work. Everybody here gets along. I think it's great. He goes, oh, so you mean that we got kind of like, it ain't broke, don't fix a thing. And she goes, well, if you think having all these ties ain't broke, then maybe.
And then heavy is the head that wears the visor.
The visor,
yes. Oh, yeah.
I love him.
Nice play on Shakespeare there.
So good.
That was real good. And I liked
no, please go ahead.
I like the scene. Well, I like the quote that Jamie made back at the bar, because he's sitting there and he goes, well, you know, the guys are like gawking, basically staring at him, and he's like, May, tell those guys to F off. And then she tells him, hey, oi,
go off or something.
And then he goes, old people are so wise. They're like tall Yodas.
That was my favorite line. I think
Star Wars reference.
Another Star Wars reference.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yep.
You're right.
Tall
So
Yodas.
funny.
Tall
And
Yodas.
Yoda came in Empire Strikes Back, and the final scene of the episode is a snow planet. It's basically a snowy pitch,
That's
and
true.
Darth Vader walks in. I mean, it's all there. And I love how they set up the conflict between Sam and Ted, right? Because Ted had that conversation with Sam, and Sam said, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't know, and I think I should make you go run laps now." Yeah, you should probably. I'll go run laps. And they think it's solved, and then boom, he's right there.
There
And
he is.
it's just all this 180, because Sam said, "My dad is happy when he sees you on TV, because you know he thinks you're like he's just glad that you're here." And so you got the good dad thing going on, and now Ted's got to turn that on Sam. I mean, that's just clever 180 writing, just boom, 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 and
Yes.
very cool stuff.
And what's going on with Higgins? He's just so
man.
displaced.
He's just walking around with that
Higgins
box.
is like everywhere. He's walking around with the box and the plant. He's everywhere and nowhere. And right in that same scene with Sam, Higgins is sitting there listening to everything, and then out of like his voice just comes out of nowhere, and it's like, handled that very well. It's like,
and then his
what?
pencils
Like,
fall on the floor.
Yes, again. With the slapstick.
Wasn't that a
goodness.
funny interaction though, when he and Ted, he was walking by him with his box, and Ted introduces himself to the plant. Hello, Robert. And then the Higgins was like, and this is Jimmy, and hands him the page or something. It took me a little while to get that, but I'm like, who is coming up with this stuff?
Very clever.
And
Very
it's so
clever.
funny because Ted didn't get it.
Yeah,
He didn't. Yeah.
Jimmy Paper? What?
Yeah. He started the pun and then couldn't follow it. Very
I
good.
wonder if that was more than just a joke. I wonder if they're trying to talk about Ted maybe being a little decentered, decentered right now, a little unstable and not in the moments the way he used to be before.
A little, he's a little out of sync. I mean, and I just can't help but feel that this is a show about the grown-ups, in this group, and it's kind of a surprise who they're showing us are grown-ups. I mean,
yes,
we'd always have Keeley in that group, but Roy, I don't think would have been on my list from at the end of the first season, but now he is just fully there. I mean, he knows what's going on. He knows what's going on with him. He's in touch with his feminine side. I thought the footage from the press conference was hysterical because it was ugly crying. There was nothing kind of moving about it. It was just embarrassing.
It is the worst. Ugly crying.
It was
so memorable.
Nobody likes that.
That's a nice segue into the title that I referenced before, because I was trying to figure out why lavender, and it went beyond just them even mentioning the lavender scented towels from earlier, because I focus on words. So as soon as I heard the word lavender, I was like, why is this tying into this episode so strongly? So I had to look it up. And the Urban Dictionary definition is what nailed it for me. So lavender, it says lavender is a name only worthy of those who have undying beauty and unbelievable talent. So beautiful, in fact, that men often have to fight over her beauty, totally epic qualities. However, there is another definition for that. And it is a pejorative term For an effeminate heterosexual male, lavender does not describe homosexual men. It is solely used to describe straight men who exhibit female qualities. So then I thought back to now we have Roy Kent talking about Nigella and Butterfly and the chicken cutlets because he wanted to make her some cordon bleu and really getting in touch with that soft side that we never had a chance to see before. But obviously Keely has zoomed in on that. And she's really buying into it. Well, she's benefiting from it truly, because remember, Keely was the one who had dealt with 23-year-old footballers, and now she's finally with a man. So yeah, they are definitely the adults in the room. They have an adult conversation,
right?
And adult interactions.
I love it.
But yeah,
and that ties into Nate actually throwing a fit about the lavender, right?
Yes.
I mean, it just ties in. I mean, it's just good writing. It ties in elegantly and clearly. He's rejecting that, and
the
and
pineapple
Beard,
in the water.
Beard, what's he say? We don't want happy soldiers. We want mad players. And he goes, even after they're taking a shower.
Yeah,
this is bringing down a notch, dude.
We want killer athletes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Killer
There's
athletes,
another derogatory definition for lavender that I'm not going to get into, but you can all look it up for yourself.
Okay.
All right. We'll put that in the notes.
Maybe a spin on that.
Okay.
As well.
The third definition of lavender.
Yeah. Beyond it being a fragrant flower.
That's fantastic.
I also liked Rebecca and Ted's interaction about therapy,
Yes,
which is it's just so authentic in terms of the Brits. I mean, it just describes my British family members to a T. And then I loved Ted, but I loved her whole thing of, what did she say? How do you feel about therapy? Well, I can diagnose myself in a heartbeat. And then she goes through the whole diagnosis and says, big whoop.
Yeah, that's why I'm alone.
Yeah, exactly. And then I'll live alone. And then he says, exactly, that's why you have friends, to burden them with your issues and anxieties.
Right.
And clearly he has trouble with that. And obviously she does. I mean, but I think that I don't think we know much about Ted. There's just so much unknown about
Puts
him.
up a big front.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And he asks her, he says after that conversation, is there something that you'd like to share with me? Like speaking, friends would do that. She's like, no. And then she says, do you? And he's like, no. So they're both in the same boat as far as sharing and feeling comfortable with sharing. So.
Well, last week we talked a lot about this being, The Empire Strikes Back, the deconstruction of, Ted, and trying to look at what is the modus operandi of all this optimism, right? Is this what it is? Is this covering up something else? And, we talked a lot about that last week, and now we're talking about it now. And it does seem that we talked about not just Ted being deconstructed, but a certain form of, I don't want to say American optimism, maybe Midwest optimism, maybe whatever you want to call it, trying to get at the angst that underlies it and sort of motivates people to behave that way and pretend like nothing's wrong. That could be a non-starter.
I think it's kind of an interesting problem that they've set up for themselves, because I don't really want them to decide optimism is a bad thing. I don't think they're going to end up with that conclusion. I mean, he wouldn't be Ted Lasso, if he didn't have that unique view of things. And he's clearly infectious. I mean, the way the whole, I love that little interchange between Leslie and Rebecca, where they're talking about whatever the guy's name is, like Laughing Larry or whatever.
Oh yeah.
And they're doing the laugh,
Yeah.
And you wouldn't have seen that last season. I mean, that's definitely Ted's influence.
Yes.
So I think, they're going to be dealing with, I mean, they're already dealing with some dark stuff, and it's going to be a trick, you know, keeping it balanced and still light, because people aren't going to want to, you know,
No.
suffer too much
No.
with this.
And maybe
But with the go ahead.
go ahead. No, please go ahead.
Well, with the deconstruction, then you also have the motivations for why they do things the way that they do. And I'm thinking back to when Jamie starts talking about, you know, the dad conversation and why he actually went on the reality show.
Right.
Because he admits that he went on the show to piss off his dad. And it's just like, you know, he constantly criticized him after each match, and it just drove him effing mad, is what he said. So it's like, why would he risk his whole entire football career just to make his dad angry? So now we're talking about motivation. You know, why did Ted decide to come across the ocean to coach football, you know, when he definitely does not know the game?
True.
So just like motivations for behaviors, was it avoidance? Was it some escapism? Was it to piss off his wife to the point where she would want him back? You see that fail because she asked for a divorce. So I think as we start to unpack these relationships and we start looking at the character's motivation for, maybe that's why his optimism is so high, to kind of offset some of the darker things that he's dealing with.
And there's that cryptic line that you already mentioned, everyone, when he's having the conversation with Jamie, and Ted says, you know, sometimes it's a hard father that led some guys to excel, and he asked him about his dad, and like you said, he said no, he was harder on himself than he was on me. Ted didn't look happy about saying that.
No, he didn't.
And then he said, "Oh, you're lucky," and him kind of said, Ted kind of looked at, "Oh, you think so, huh?" So I wonder, I mean, this is Star Wars, and there's definitely a Ted Daddy vibe that's probably going to come out. In other words, what happened between Ted and his dad?
Yeah.
I mean, last season we learned about, you know, playing darts at the sports bar, you know, every weekend. You know, hearing you guys talk about it, I think there's something pretty dark in Tim's father's past that isn't necessarily him being aggressive against Tim, but maybe aggressive against himself in horrible ways.
Yeah.
And then Ted trying to deal with that, and maybe even feeling responsible. I have no idea. It's just, they put that line out there. They acted that scene for a particular way, right? And we are doing Star Wars here, so.
Yeah, there's lots of hints going on here. It's so much fun to watch it episode at a time, and to not be able to consume it all at once, and to really think about it during the week. And then that line in the dark scene, he's something to the effect of, all people have underestimated me. Is that the words that he uses
from last season with the dark game? Yeah. They weren't curious,
and that's, I think, going to come back, you know, because I mean, that's a chip on his shoulder there.
Yes.
You know, that underestimation, and you know, that came from somewhere, whether it's just other kids or, you know, whatever, but you know, there are stories linked to all of this, and I think they're clever enough to have planned a lot of this. I don't know how many of you saw that interview, that podcast with him and the Beard and Brene Brown, but you know, she's a very popular
I think I did watch that. You sent us the link, I think.
Right, researcher on shame, and she's amazing. And I think the conversation they had was really incredible. And I think they were kind of more excited to be able to see her than she was even to see them. And I wonder how much they're going to take from her on vulnerability and the matters of shame, and then the whole man in the arena poem that she refers to, and so on. So, I mean, and Brene Brown's definitely an optimist, you know. I mean, definite,
And that-
believes in good things.
And Ted actually said her name a couple times in the first episode.
Did he?
I'm quite certain he did. You don't know her? Or I'll go back and look. I hope I'm not confusing shows. But I'm quite certain that name came up in the first episode. And someone didn't know who it was. I'll look it up. Anyway, I could be wrong. But yeah, I think you guys nailed it in terms of when Ted's having that conversation with Jamie. And Jamie says, "You're lucky." It just kind of, ruptures a little something. And Ted, I keep saying Ted. And I think that's what opens him up to letting Jamie back on the team. Right. So any other characters, lines, scenes? Excuse me.
I loved your use of music. I just absolutely adored Jamie walking onto the pitch to Queen's Tear It Up. I mean, it was just exactly what's going to happen to that team.
Yeah.
They're going to be torn up, ripped apart, shaken up.
And it'll all be good comedy. I mean, I'm being...
and you're going to get that, you finally have that tension and that rub, that you really need to make this show function. You've got to have, because Nate's not enough, he can't carry all of that weight. And Sharon, we're going to be in the palm of her hand really quickly. I think we're going to be on her side.
Yeah, she's not a baddie.
No, not at all. So you've got to have, and Jamie, it's so funny. I didn't remember how good looking he was. In this episode, it was like, whoa, he is really hot.
But he looked different from last season somehow.
Well, they had some very interesting eyebrows.
Yeah, they do that.
Yes.
The cut in the eyebrows. Yeah.
I'll have to try that. But
he had that
one
bad
of those
boy
reality
broody
shows.
look going on
Yeah.
too. Especially when he went to the bar, that bar scene, he was just brooding. And he looked really vulnerable. You talk about vulnerability. He looked really vulnerable in the coffee shop when he approached Keely too, because he was just like, I'm not stalking you. He's hiding behind the shelf.
Yeah.
I'm not stalking you. Well, I kind of stalked you, but I'm not really stalking you. Well, yeah, I did really stalk you since you first left for lunch. It's like, what are you doing, sir? So
he's unwinding for sure. Absolutely.
No. Which is why when I saw her do that, I was like, oh no, please tell me she didn't take him back. Like, no.
Oh, I know. Yeah. Wouldn't that have been awful?
Terrible.
That would have
Don't go there.
Yeah. I'm glad they didn't. It's just like, phew, thank you.
The Twitterverse would have totally canceled them if they had tried to maneuver like that.
Yeah.
And then even when she was having her wank, if it had been a picture of Jamie or something, it was that would have just been like the worst. That would have been equally as bad as her falling off the wagon and actually being with him. But just to know, like, not only was she thinking about Roy, but he was technically in the room, right, on the video.
We said last week we're going to see some of that award ceremony at some point, but none of us would have predicted the scene that it showed up.
Never, ever.
Never would have guessed.
I mean, that's we're going to do this to you in episode 1. You're going to expect it at some point. And boom. It's like, see what we did? It's just fantastic.
Yeah, I was expecting the Roy Kent who showed up on the Sky Sport or whatever they call that show. I was expecting him to show up in the video. But no, totally different guy showed up.
It's fantastic. It was just so well thought out. They just set us up for it. Boom, 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 crash. It was fantastic. I actually watched it Friday night and I watched it again today after I got home from work. And I got to say, I enjoyed it more the second time. And when I can enjoy comedy more the second time, that means it's not so much the surprise. It is the surprise, but it's the quality, the acting quality of the writing. And if I go watch it a third time, I'll laugh even more. It's just that you know, my family knows I'm watching Ted Lasso and I'm just howling, you know,
There's so much in there.
every minute.
Yes, it's a lot to unpack. As
It
I was writing
is.
the notes and I was going back, just like, oh, now I need to look up that book, The Prince of Tides.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, there's a reference to Shakespeare. Heavy is the head that wears the crown, isn't it? Okay. So I'm just, you know, my notes look like I'm writing a dissertation or something because it has all these references and I'm looking things up and I'm just like, oh my gosh, like, stop. You're not writing a paper. So
well, I have to admit, I cheat a little bit. NPR does a really good write-up on Ted Lasso every week. And they have a section they call Analytic Ted. So they talk about the different things he analyzes.
Oh, wow.
Poetic Ted, and you know, so they spend you know, 3 or 4 pages having fun with the show in all the different ways that they write it. So I do have to admit I borrow from that because they've already got the quotes written out. I don't have to.
Are we unpacking some of that stuff though? Are we hitting on any of it?
No, we've hit all the lines. I mean,
nice.
Take that, NPR.
But I mean, the old people are so wise, you know, they're like tall Yodas.
That was so good.
That was a really good line.
Yeah. And he's talking about Jimmy Buffett songs and lines on the sideline. And I thought it was very funny. Like they kept kind of panning away from the doctor in the stands. And he's like, I think she's sneaking up on me every time I turn around. And then she was.
She was getting closer. Great.
Sometimes it really is happening.
By the time he walked off the field, she was practically sitting at the rail there.
Yep.
He doesn't normally act like this.
Right.
And that's
like you're making excuses.
Go ahead.
No, I'm saying he's already making excuses for the bad behavior that she's witnessing.
He's embarrassed, you know, his family's behaving poorly in front of guests. But it's another one of those 180s where she sees all that. She does sort of kick him out of her office. And then they're sitting there at the end and he says, oh, I've got the write-up, I'm ready, I'm going to send you an email. He goes, no, just give it to me now, I'd rather hear it live. And then she says, this is a really nice place to work. It's like, boom, you know, it's just setting us up, boom. And it's like, even though you know they're going to 180 you at some point, you still get hit. It's so well done that you just hook, line, and sinker. And then it's just, you just howl. And it's like, thank God this kind of thing exists in the world. I'm going to be honest, because I needed to laugh for a solid half hour after work today. So that was totally delightful.
Well,
You know,
I was doing, I always do some reading on it too. I have trouble, despite the fact that I live with a British person, I have trouble understanding what they're saying sometimes. So I'll have to just, you know, run it back to catch words because I miss some of it. But in doing some of the research for it or investigation, I saw that someone mentioned that the character who plays Dr. Sharon, she said she's never ridden a bike. She's never been able to ride a bike.
Oh.
And so that whole thing with the Transformer bike was especially, you know,
that's funny.
important. She had to learn to bike in order to do that scene, which I just think that's just such a great story.
Yeah, living the role. Absolutely.
I put the closed captions on.
I do too.
When I watch.
Really good idea.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah, I started doing that when I was watching Game of Thrones. It just helped me to be able to catch the dialogue. But then I basically grew up watching British TV. I mean, Benny Hill. Come on.
Oh man.
I grew up watching Benny Hill and then just watching Monty Python. So
Two Ronnies.
I can. Oh yeah, I can. Absolutely fabulous. I mean, we can go on and on. So I just really love even their deadpan humor, like the way that they deliver their lines is just epic. And I just take it all in, and it kind of takes me back to my childhood and the slapstick comedy, and it takes me back to Carol Burnett. I mean, I just love it. I love comedy. So but then there's that serious element too, and I'm just looking forward to seeing how it all intertwines, because I think one of my favorite characters this season is Nate. So Nate, who we think is going to be the adult in the room now, is kind of a mean boy, right? He's kind of mean, you know, because the very thing that they were doing to him in season 1, you know, with the Kit Man, he's doing the same thing to the new Kit Man, right? He's what are you doing? And calling him in the office and slamming doors and just being rude and abrasive to him. And the guy is so sweet. You know, like, no, you know.
Yeah.
My girlfriend
and even
loves
Ted
Lavender.
comes in there. Right. And even Ted comes in there to why does it smell like my Nana's house?
Yeah. He gets all riled up.
And now we know what that scene really means with the lavender, right? Absolutely. It's fantastic.
Yes.
No, that's great. That's great.
So I'm looking to see how they develop him. You know, is he gonna continue to be this guy that spins out and makes comments like, well, you know, you got to stay on him. You know, you gotta be hard.
He's right. I mean, you don't want calm athletes. You want killer athletes. You know, you don't want. I get a kick out of watching. I mean, I'm a huge basketball fan, and one of my favorite little tropes that all the announcers do in talking about basketball is waxing so nostalgic for 80s and 90s basketball when guys could beat the crap out of each other on the court and no fouls were called.
Detroit Pistons.
Man, you know, we were tough back then, you know. And it makes me laugh so much because they'll just be up in arms because one player from one team will help a player from another team up off the floor. You'd never have seen that in the 80s. And it's like, oh, that must be bad, you know? Yeah. But, you know, there's something about that toughness, you know, that, and soccer's so much more of a, I don't want to say violent, but aggressive. It's an aggressive sport I mean, I'm a novice when it comes to that, to the sport, but it just always seems to me to be, you know, for the lack of padding that they're wearing, an incredibly aggressive sport.
Yeah, it used to be a lot worse. I mean, it used to be a lot worse. And that's why a lot of people are, you know, anti-diving, right? They get really mad when the people go into the box and just kind of fall, where they just wouldn't have gotten away with that. To the point where now you get called in a foul, you get a foul, yellow card if you're found to be diving. So that vibe is there too.
In basketball?
That's flop. Yeah, absolutely. Same thing. Yeah. Yeah. No, it's there. It's there. I think they're playing with that.
Roy Kent played on that too.
Yeah.
Apparently they don't let 9-year-olds do headers.
Yeah.
The developing brain.
As if we need to worry about that.
I just love the way he can be those two people. Right. And because that, for me, there's a certain reality there, because when I'm in a certain space playing a certain Scott, it's going to come out that way. And then when another place playing another Scott, it's completely different. If I were to act like at the job like I do as a father, it wouldn't work. So I love that they let him be those and don't act like it's a contradiction we have to resolve. Right. I think they're clever enough, as you guys have been saying, they're not going to force us into a right or wrong in this stuff at any point. And that's why they can continue to 180 us, right? They just, because we don't know what's coming next, because they're not trying to set a moral agenda. They're not trying to tell us where to end up.
No, I was not expecting Roy to talk about cooking chicken and all of that. That caught me off guard.
Butterfly and chicken cordon bleu.
Yeah, and for Keely to get turned on by it, I don't know what's making me. I don't know what's getting to me more. Are you saying Nigella or talking about moist? The chicken being moist.
I can't tell you how much I love that line. I just love those scenes. They're so adult, right? And so full of sass and sexy and smart. And we just tend not to see that portrayed that way too often. And I love it.
No, it's very adult and it's very fun.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that
It's a
she could
great
have
online
this,
couple.
you know, where she gave up the boy, right, the 23-year-old footballer for this retired footballer now, but she's still having a fun interaction with him in a very sexy adult way. So it's nice to see.
Yeah.
And then when she was admitting her own vulnerability when he walked in and didn't say a word. And she goes, "Oh, my God, you hated it. Okay, if you hate it, I swear to God, you don't ever." So she's just trying to backpedal because she loves him, does not want him to leave. So, you know, both of them are putting their vulnerabilities on the table, which, you know, for me is part of the adult vibe. You know, we're both vulnerable people, and how are we going to help each other in that space? So they've thought it all out, man. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Very good.
Do any of you think there's going to be romance on the table for Ted? It keeps playing in the back of my head, and I
think Ted's got to deal with Ted. I mean, they had that. I think Ted has to deal with Ted. He has to learn how to deal with Ted. You know, I think they're just going to really unpack him and his issues, and maybe we'll get to why his marriage broke down in the first place if he's such this great guy. I mean, he made reference to how his optimism really was like a knife in the back to his wife. How it started to, you know, it was that scratching on the chalkboard sound, right, to her, that the optimism turned into a turnoff for her. So really trying to, all right, so what really was it that drove the wedge between him and his wife? I mean, he's an affectionate, loving father. He plays with his son. He gives him great gifts. He spends time at play with him, you know, and he wanted to be in this marriage. He even said, "Look, I'll leave so that I can make this thing work, give you your space," right? But it still wasn't enough. So I think, and then he had this affair, right, with Rebecca's friend, that one night stand, and he was feeling guilty about that.
She needs to come back.
Yeah,
she does need to come back sassy.
You know, of course, I'd love to see how he deals with it. Exactly. And how does he deal with it, right? How does he contextualize it now, given where he is?
Yes.
Yeah, I suspect they'll bring her back for at least, you know, an episode. Whether or not it's a lasting relationship, you know, is a different issue.
She was great though. She brought another element, because then she was able to talk about Rebecca, you know, in a way that we had never heard. Kind of bringing up some of her past, right?
And that was one of the best titles of last year, "Make Rebecca Great Again," right? That was just one of the best, best titles. And for me, it was my favorite episode. You know, that's the one with the panic attack and just great stuff. So I think we are probably going to see one really bad moment for Ted this year. Just because they did one with him last year, but it didn't ruin the character, you know. And I don't think they're gonna do. I think he'll go through at least one bad spell. I don't know if it'll be with his family, but something. What I would suspect, or maybe we end Luke, I'm your father. You know, maybe we end on some bad thing, right? It's sort of a, you know, second act cliffhanger. Because we're gonna find out something about Ted's dad, I think. And, you know, maybe the optimism that his wife couldn't stand was maybe Ted's inability to grieve or act like anything had happened. I don't know. I'm just riffing. But a lot of space to play with.
I can see some romance coming up down the road if he works through all these issues. And that will kind of show us that he's kind of made it through and he's feeling better about himself and resolved what happened to him in the past. And he's able to take on a relationship and not just, you know, having a one-night stand with the crazy lady.
Well, it would
the fun-loving lady.
It would be cool. Cool as harsh word, but it would be good to see him have a relationship that doesn't work. Right? That it's not that you've got further to go, young Skywalker. It's just, you know, he's kind of messed up right now. You know, decentered and love and all that's still in that space, and being attracted to people and wanting to be with people, it's all there. So, I wouldn't mind seeing a little bit more about Beard's life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love him so
Yeah.
much.
We haven't seen much of him yet this
His
season.
one-liners.
Mhm.
For chance to sleep here. Just great stuff. Great
just
stuff.
Centers and grounds the whole thing for me.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know? I just adore him. I just think he's so amazing. And he's an ISU graduate, right?
Oh my God, I did not know that.
Yeah, so you should reach out to him and see if he'll be on the podcast.
Yeah, come on the podcast.
Come on.
Are you serious?
Yes.
We
That
will
would be
have him
great.
here. We will have
Okay,
him
it
here.
will be
I'll
done.
work on
Great.
it. No, that's so fantastic. I had no clue. I'll definitely work on him. Get him an honorary doctorate or something.
He's the tall Yoda of the show.
Yeah. There you go. I like that.
I
That's
didn't get it. Yeah, he's the tall Yoda.
I'm gonna write all
The
that down
beard.
right now.
That is perfect.
That is perfect.
Beard is
Yeah, he's so calm. He's like
tall
just a calming force.
Yoda. Yeah, I
And
love
those
it.
one-liners.
Yes.
And he's just always off at the periphery of Ted's well-being, right? He's just
Mhm.
giving him enough
Mhm.
space. He's not going to impose himself too much, except for when Ted doesn't think that winning is important at all, right? Then you push that wrong button last season, and he lost it and says, "But it
Yes.
is," but he's always there, making sure Ted doesn't go, too far out of bounds.
And
with
his relationships always seem slightly chaotic, which amuses me.
Yes.
He's like no drama, but still there's drama going on.
Yeah.
total
Oh
drama.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, really would be
The
good.
girl
to
he
see
was
him.
playing chess with out the chess.
Yes,
board.
that was funny.
What? And then she gets mad at the end because he wouldn't stop playing the game long enough to really interact with her.
Great stuff.
She's like, "I'm out of here. Goodbye."
So that about wraps it up for tonight's episode. Thanks so much for tuning in. Lasso Crew members, please tell the audience where they can find you on social media, and we shall start with Montien.
You can find me on Twitter at NurseyPoo2K2.
Fantastic. Kerri?
I'm on Twitter at Kerri K. Morris, Kerri K. Morris.
Fantastic. And Sister A?
You can find me on Twitter at _Sista A, SISTAH.
Fantastic. You can find me on Twitter at @dark_loops. You can find all episodes of the Lasso Crew at the Dark Loops Productions channel on YouTube. If you'd like to leave feedback about this episode, please leave it on this YouTube page or send an email to darkloopsproductions@gmail.com. We'll be sure to read it at the end of our next podcast. Before we leave, I do have something I want to share with you. We did get a comment from last week.
Okay.
Give me just a moment.
By the way, I'm loving your t-shirt, Zombie.
Oh, thank you very much.
Representing.
Very
Represent-
nice.
That's the Dallas.
Very nice.
That was Dallas. Yeah.
Awesome.
Let me see here.
Good times.
Mm-hmm.
Come on now, y'all. So here's a comment I got. Kerri, do you know someone, Allison Idris?
That's
Me?
me.
Who is that? Oh, shit.
Oh, I was going to say.
That's my real name.
So here's what Allison Idris
What did I say?
wrote in response to our
Oh, this
podcast
is
last week.
okay.
Tom being Tom. Fantastic. So
Oh, he
everyone
was
out there,
so
please
good.
feel free to write in with your comments about Ted Lasso. We'd love to chat about know what you think. So there it is. From all of us to all of you, big hugs. And remember, football is
Football
live.
is life.
Bye-bye.
I